Welcome to the deep dive. We're here again, unpacking complex topics, trying to give you those essential nuggets of knowledge. Today, we're diving into an innovation that sounds almost like science fiction, but it's real. Rain-powered solar panels. And we're looking specifically at places like, say, Wichita, Kansas. You shared your sources, and our mission, as always, is to cut through the noise, make you well-informed on this all-weather energy solution. So, okay, we all know traditional solar panels, they're fantastic, right? When the sun's shining. But what happens when the clouds roll in? Or it starts pouring rain?
Exactly, that's the big limitation.
And that's where this new tech steps in, I gather.
It does, and it's not just about, adding a little extra power. Some see this as potentially shifting how we think about grid stability, maybe even offering a path to, true 2047 renewable power locally.
Wow, okay, so how does it actually work? Generating power from rain?
Yeah, what's truly revolutionary here is the how. They harness energy using something called Triboelectric nanogenerators.
Triboelectric.
Yeah.
Okay, bit of a mouthful.
TENG for short. TENG. Basically, think of it like static electricity, from friction. From the raindrops hitting the panel.
Exactly that, the impact itself. So engineers add these two special transparent layers on top of a regular solar panel. One's a silicone-based material, the other is a conductive polymer.
Okay.
And often these layers have these tiny, tiny grooves etched into them, apparently modeled after old DVD tracks.
Huh, like on a disc. Why?
To dramatically increase the surface area. More surface, more friction when the layers touch.
Makes sense.
So when a raindrop lands, splat, it pushes that top layer down for a split second. It contacts the bottom layer, and that contact generates a tiny electrical charge.
Right, converting the kinetic energy, the movement of the drop.
Precisely, into usable electricity. Now, early commercial versions, they're getting around, say, 12.5% efficiency just from the rain part. But in the lab, they're already hitting almost 25%. That's a huge leap pretty quickly for new tech. 25%. Just from raindrops. Okay, that's significant. So the big picture benefits here are continuous power, right? Even when it's raining.
Mm-hmm. It complements the solar part.
And you're using energy from raindrops that was, just hitting the roof before. Wasted energy.
Exactly.
But does it need, a heavy downpour? What about just a light drizzle? Does the intensity matter much?
That's a really good question. So the output from just one single drop, it is small. We're talking like 0.68 milliwatts, even in optimized systems. Tiny.
Okay.
But think about a steady rain. The cumulative effect, drop after drop after drop, that adds up. It provides a really valuable supplementary flow of power. So even a drizzle helps. But yeah, a proper rainstorm gives more consistent generation.
Okay, right. And if you're listening, you might be thinking, where does this tech make the most sense? And that's why we mentioned Wichita, Kansas. Its climate. It's pretty variable, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Famously so. You get those bright, sunny stretches, perfect for solar. But then you also get significant seasonal rainfall, sometimes pretty intense storms, too.
Right. So when a big Kansas thunderstorm hits, your normal solar panels, they're basically offline.
The flat line, yeah.
Yeah.
But these hybrid panels, they could keep producing power during the storm. It maintains production when the solar part dips. And that offers, a critical layer of energy security. Independence, really.
Okay, now let's talk brass tacks, the money side. Because cutting edge usually means expensive, right? Is this actually financially viable for, a homeowner?
It's true. The upfront cost is currently higher than just standard solar. No getting around that yet. For a typical 10-kilowatt system, you might be looking at, say, $25,000 to $32,000 for the hybrid setup, compared to maybe $20,000 to $27,000 for traditional solar. So yeah, a noticeable difference.
Okay.
And this is crucial, the 30% federal tax credit. That brings the effective cost down quite a bit.
Right, the federal incentive helps a lot.
It does. And because it generates more consistently, some estimates suggest the return on investment, the ROI, could actually be faster, maybe 7 to 10 years, which is potentially quicker than the typical 8 to 12 years for standard solar alone.
Faster ROI, even with higher initial cost. How does that work?
Well, by generating power more consistently, including during rain or cloudy weather, you're offsetting more of your electricity bill throughout the year. And finance systems, the monthly payments often end up being pretty comparable to what you'd pay the utility anyway, maybe $123 to $134 a month on average.
That faster ROI, though, it seems ambitious, especially since you mentioned Kansas doesn't have extra state incentives kicking in.
That's a fair point. No extra state help there.
Are there other catches or challenges?
Yeah, another hurdle, particularly in Kansas, is the main utility, Evergy. Their buyback rates for excess power you generate and send back to the grid, they're quite low, Minimal, really.
Ah, so if your panels make more power than you use at that moment, you don't get much credit for it.
Exactly. That can definitely stretch out the payback period if you're exporting a lot.
But does it still make sense for some people?
Well, we found this example. A Kansas resident put solar on their roof last January. They reported producing 1.2 megawatt hours, enough to cover like 90% of their electric vehicle charging needs. And even with a higher upfront cost and the low buyback, they still expect their ROI within 7 to 9 years.
So focusing on using the power yourself, like for an EV, makes a big difference.
It really highlights that potential for self-consumption, reducing how much you rely on the grid in the first place.
That's a compelling real-world case. So, okay, looking ahead, what's next for this tech? Where's it going?
Research is definitely ongoing. They're pushing for better efficiency all the time. Things like even more complex multi-layer 10 designs, trying to squeeze out more power per drop, and also developing super hydrophobic films, coatings that make water bead up and roll off really fast, generating power as it goes.
Interesting. So still evolving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Challenges remain. Like we said, the upfront cost is still high. Those buyback rates can be an issue depending where you are. But you combine the federal help with this unique all-weather capability. It really does position rain-powered solar as a genuinely promising path toward greater energy independence for homeowners.
So this deep dive really shows how innovation is chipping away at the limitations we thought were inherent in renewable energy. For you listening, how might this kind of blend this tech meeting local weather patterns? How might that redefine what renewable energy could mean for your own home, your community?
Yeah, it really raises a key question, doesn't it? In this energy landscape that's changing so fast, how might this promise of continuous all-weather generation actually empower more people, more communities to achieve real energy independence, regardless of the forecast?